4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married Into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I'm sorry. I'm Snooks.
Why are you laughing?
Just because. Go ahead.
She's giddy. See, this is what happens when I get her drunk before a podcast.
Wow.
No, just playing. Just playing.
Yeah.
That would be fun, though.
No, it wouldn't. We'd be shut down, taken off the air, everything. So.
Hey, look. Well, welcome back to everyone that's used to the podcast. If you're new, this is your first time. We usually start out a little bit smoother than this, but we always like to have fun. This is us 24/7. And so if you're new, Married Into Crazy has been around since 2018. Mm-hmm. We're a married couple that's been married now for 29 years.
So actually Married Into Crazy, not the organization, but we've been married into crazy, like you said, 29 years, but I want to say maybe 24.
This is what happens when you marry an analytical.
What are you talking about?
They want to give you like all the details.
Because I'm trying to give all.
And he was wearing.
If I don't do that, I will sit here and we'll go through the whole podcast, and in my brain, I'll be still thinking about the one thing that I wanted to say or point out. So I got to get it out right now.
This is us.
Oh,
right?
Wait. Happy New Year?
We've had an episode since the New Year, babe.
Oh.
See, this is what I deal with. So anyway, look, here's the deal. We've been married for 20 years. We've been through some stuff.
Are you sure?
We've been through some stuff. I'm still going through some things, as you can tell. But look, bottom line is that when we first got married, or actually before we even got married, got engaged, she had an ex-boyfriend that broke into the home, attacked her, and then I ended up getting stabbed through my heart.
So, but you're not giving timelines.
We're not giving timelines because we're trying to get through the intro.
I know, but usually you'll say, we got together and I didn't like him, but he fell in love with me the first day. And then 4 months later, we were engaged because I said he was a nerd, but nerd got game, whatever. So 4 months later, we got engaged. And then 5 days after that, my ex-boyfriend broke into my house or pushed his way into the house, attacked me. Lovey was my knight in shining armor, but he was stabbed through the heart. He had to have open heart surgery twice. The first time it was to save his life. The second time it was to actually save his life for later because he had to repair a hole in the back of his heart that they didn't catch when he was in the trauma at UC Davis. There you go.
And then she asked for a divorce.
I did. Because you see how he acts? That's why.
So when we say we've been through some things, we have. But what we decided was that when we were going through all of that, we needed a couple, somebody that we could lean on. And we did find that, but it was just one couple. And all the resources that we used, all the things that we tried to utilize just didn't work for us. So we decided we needed to become that couple that we needed in those dark times. And that's why Married Into Crazy was actually born. And just so you know, crazy, sometimes it is just straight up crazy. But for us and what we do with our Married Into Crazy coaching platform, crazy is an acronym.
And it stands for compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding.
See me yielding?
We're still working on the yielding part for him because he's kind of...
See me yielding? Yeah, I'm yielding.
Wow. It's fake.
Now, you can hear some giggling in the background, and I'm telling you right now, so one of the beauties of this podcast is that it's not always just us. Since 2018, up until the beginning of this year, we've had a podcast every single week. And what we've done, or at least labored to do, is not only share our experiences and the things that we've heard and have gone through, but also bring you subject matter experts as well as other couples. Other couples that have also been through some things, that have had these unique, interesting stories that we could highlight for other couples that are going through similar things, right? Because we all have our own specific marital DNA. All of us are different, and that's why we really try and bring you all these interesting individuals. Well, there's a project that I've been talking about for the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. and that was doing an interfaith marriage series because we have several friends that have different faiths, and yet they make their marriage work. They come together, they find a way, they've come up with their own recipe for what success looks like in their homes. And so we have some friends that have been gracious enough to share their story with us. And one of those couples happens to be Joel and Terry Backman. Welcome to the Married into Crazy podcast.
Where's the sound effects?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
And we've
You're
been
welcome.
with you guys through all the crazy. Well, at least I have.
That's true. You've been through almost every, been through every piece of it.
It's right there.
You know, and so before we begin, I kind of jumped right in, but I want to remind everybody, don't forget to get your tickets to the Married into Crazy Winter Ball and Marriage Conference. It's coming up February 6th and 7th. There was a little bit of a preamble commercial prior to this coming on, so you know what it's all about. Don't forget to go to marriedintocrazy.com and definitely get your tickets. Time is running out. We will stop selling tickets around the 23rd, 24th. So make sure you get yours. Now, back to Terry and Joel.
Or Joel and Terry.
Or Joel and Terry. So it's funny. So you two are sitting there. Now, where are you guys from?
San Francisco.
That was a quick answer. So look,
I'm gonna take the hard ones.
I've known you guys.
Do you mean where they from
Yeah,
as
I
far
didn't
as
know.
like
I
where
was
you
like,
grew up or
we're-
where do they
we're
live right
speaking
now?
From San Francisco, but
Okay.
from South
I just want
Lake
people to
View.
know like where you're at, like geographically, like in the world. So Rana likes to actually jump in and start asking some questions about your love origin.
So share with us, if you don't mind, how y'all met and what led up to the getting married part.
How long do you have?
Give
Give us the condensed version.
Yeah,
I know
give us
you
the
got a story
synopsis.
like we do, but give us the condensed version.
Condensed version. So Teresa and I both moved to San Francisco. Well, Teresa was at school in Berkeley, but I moved to the Bay Area after college. And so we met at work. Teresa started about a year before I did, but we didn't like each other a whole lot when we first met. But when you do what we did, you go out on engagements. So you're out at the client, you're in a conference room, so you spend time, you go to lunch.
I was the boss. Let's be clear.
Yeah, and maybe not on the first engagement, but yes, very soon thereafter. So it gave me foreshadowing. So we met, like I said, super early. We were young, so early to mid 20s, and probably started dating. I don't know, 12 to 24 months later, and but had a courtship that lasted another 7 years before
9.
Yeah, but I know, but I'm saying like, you know,
9.
so see, Ernie, this is the analytical bit. So we got engaged in 2000. So from the early 90s to 2000, that was the courtship period. But that's where we met. We met at work. And I quickly left work, I don't know, 3 years in, and Teresa continued for her entire career. Just as the relationship continued, it was better for lots of reasons, but I left there.
Did you leave because you had to get away from her?
No, kind of the opposite. It was, well, back to being a boss. So we were literally dating, and she was running an engagement, and I worked for her, like literally. And there was someone above us, and the person above us was maybe one of the few people knew we were dating. And so he hired me, so he knew us both personally. And I think it gave him the opportunity to kind of play with it a little. She had to give me a performance review, and he made it very difficult for Teresa because I was a little bit difficult with performance reviews. And so anyway, long-winded way of saying it was easier for me to leave if this relationship was going to continue. So,
But you left for your career, not
No,
at the
but
time
they-
for a relationship. Let's be clear.
they led to the same conclusion, so it was very easy.
Okay.
I like Joel's version.
Okay.
The market's better.
But I do want just if you could touch on a little bit about the when you went overseas part, because I love that part of the story.
Okay. Well, Joel went overseas. He had a chance to work for a company over there, and he got sick while he was over there. And he asked the hospital to call and leave me a message. And so I got to work that morning and I checked my voicemail and I had a message from a nurse that Joel was in the hospital and he was a bit sick. And if I could call. And so it was a UK number and they left the wrong number. And so I kept calling this UK number and a little boy would answer. And I was asking if it was a hospital and they're like, no. So then, fortunately, I had a coworker who was from London. And so we called his mom and she got the phone book out and started giving me numbers to the hospitals. And it was about our second or third hospital that we called that said, no, we don't have this ward, but Chelsea Westminster Hospital does. And so then we called the correct hospital and I got to Joel. And I don't know, less than 12 hours, I was on an airplane flying to Joel.
Well, the detail she doesn't provide is we weren't dating at the time. So when I went to live in London, we broke up. And so she'd come to see me, but we weren't technically dating at the time. So
it was one of the many, breakups, get back together and breakups. We were good at that.
Even if he didn't know it, you were getting back.
Well, that's interesting.
I always say he wasn't a great boyfriend, but he is a phenomenal husband.
You trained him well.
Wow, shots fired. It's funny. I never heard
that was the trip though that definitely that he told me he left me. Mm-hmm. And then we've been together ever since then.
Well, so to be clear, like I had lost a ton of blood, so I had a bleeding ulcer that eroded into the heart. And so when I asked,
you were lightheaded and not sure.
No, like, I'm trying to say something positive, and you no, because when I asked the nurse to call you, I don't remember doing it. Like I had a bleeding ulcer, eroded into artery, so I was internally bleeding at the time. Subsequently, to go on and have blood transfused multiple times over, but so that was my point: is that there was something, non-conscious, or it wasn't thoughtful in terms of I'm going to call her. It could have been anyone, I guess, but I called.
Yeah. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the seed had been planted, so subconsciously you knew that if you're in a dire situation, that something inside you was like, get Teresa.
All those subliminal messages she played all those years finally came to fruition.
I think, when you guys were together, she was probably playing something late at night, like just slow in the background as you slept.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you play Stairway to Heaven backwards, it says the different things. No. But hey, it forced me to deal with a lot of things. One, because when you have a moment, and Ernie, maybe you have the same thing as you were talking about early in your relationship. Like I came out the other side of it. One, I didn't know why this happened, but two, I came out the other side, and the doctor couldn't tell me why all this had happened. And so you kind of have to look internal. And so at the same time, we were doing some of that, and probably more me than Teresa on the relationship side. So yeah, it was an interesting period for sure.
Well, and then you worked through some therapy before we got engaged, because we dated, as we said, 9 years, and then he still wasn't sure whether he was ready to get married. And I was like, okay, after this time, you either know or you don't. So then, in fairness to him, he did the work and did the therapy, and then we got engaged. But he was given a bit of a time frame.
Well, I
feel that.
The beauty of that is no, when it's all said and done, I mean, the beauty of it is that when you said you came out on the other side, and I think that when individuals have a near-death experience, or at least something that's like really dire, that you really do kind of take this inventory on like what's most really important to you.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah.
And And so when that surfaces, that says, okay, you know what? It's time to make that pivot, if you will, to another. I don't want to use all the cliches, but you do. You start to pivot like, okay, what's important to me? And then now let me actually go in that direction instead of waiting for it to come to me. And so
Yeah.
when you made that decision to get married, because this is going to be a discussion about interfaith relationships, at what point did you two get into a conversation around like, okay, well, for those of you that know, Joel is Jewish and Terry grew up Catholic. And so when did you guys get in that conversation? Like, hey, you know, we're going to be together. Or was it even a topic of conversation?
Not really. There were other conversations about kids and cats and dogs and stuff like that. But when it talks about, I don't think, I don't remember a conversation.
I negotiated a lot up front with Joel to make sure that we were on the same page. But honestly, religion wasn't one of them because I'm not really sure why. It really didn't come up until we asked a rabbi who who was good friends with Joel's family and who we had both met, and we really liked her mannerisms and how she was, and we asked her to marry us, and she said no. And she said no because interfaith couples have the highest divorce rate. And so she didn't want to be part of that, knowing that most likely you were going to get divorced. So what we agreed with her and what she agreed to do with us is to work with us for a year. And we met with her over a year, and then she would decide whether she thought we were a good fit and she should marry us. And so really before that, I mean, we did talk about a lot of things, as we said, like children and like our careers and working and pets and all of those kinds of things, and like just different responsibilities in the household and how we wanted things to work. We definitely talked about that, but neither one of us were big on forcing the other one to convert or or to change, or like we had to be one religion or the other for sure. That wasn't unfortunately his parents had gone through more of a tumultuous experience over interfaith. So his dad was Christian and his mom was Jewish, and her parents didn't want her to have any relationship with his dad. He ultimately converted to Judaism, and then of course they raised their family Jewish. So they also had some real sensitivity to it. And because I was pretty strong in my faith, and they didn't ever expect me to convert to Judaism or anything. So really our roadblock to marriage really didn't happen until we talked to the rabbi, and she was very blunt. And then she worked for us for a year, and she said, you guys are good, and so she married us. So that's who married us, actually.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. I was like, man, was this the same rabbi that married you? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, Rabbi Tirza Firestone. I mean, she had a pretty dynamic background for her. And so at one point she was married to like a Christian minister too. So she had some challenges with growing up in a really strict Jewish family. And so she rebelled a little bit from that in her life too. And then ultimately became a rabbi. She's a reformed Jewish rabbi, and she's a really cool, dynamic woman. But no, she really sat down with us and needed us to talk about our children and our faith and what decisions were. And probably the driving force between Joel and I with that whole conversation was definitely more me. At that point, Joel was still had probably more of a resistance to his faith. I mean, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Judaism for you loved the cultural aspect of it, but you didn't love probably more of the structure and religious aspects of it. I don't know. You might categorize it differently.
No, it's probably pretty accurate. And I would say is like Teresa has always been more comfortable in, I'll call it faith, spirituality, whatever word you want to use. But that to her doesn't equal structured religion or all of the form of religion necessarily. It's a soulful thing. And so she, from moment one, was always comfortable. Like a rabbi married us. It wasn't a minister or a priest or whatever. If we'd have gone that route, I'm not saying I wouldn't have gotten there, but that would have been a bigger, because that, as much as I dislike or struggled with the religious side of Judaism, I grew up with it. So you know it. It's like it's what you know. But if you'd asked me to have that form from the Catholicism side, it would have been more to sort of, because that I think I struggle with, and I still do to this day, but less so now, the form of religion. And
the rabbi who married us, though, because she is progressive and more of a reformed rabbi, I mean, she incorporated, Catholic traditions of the Mass into our wedding ceremony. So she was very open, to marrying the two faiths and marrying the two cultures. And so our wedding ceremony had Jewish traditions, had Catholic traditions, and had Mexican traditions. And so she was very open into having all of that be part of our wedding ceremony. So it was very inclusive. And at the time for me, I didn't really have a priest that I was really close with. And so, it was perfect for us.
I'm glad you brought that up, because to this day, other than our own personal wedding, your wedding is my all-time favorite.
Aww.
Not just because it's you two. I mean, you guys are like two of my closest friends. But on top of that, I've never, the blend of what you just described, having Judaism, Catholicism, and some traditional Mexican or Hispanic, Latino traditions interwoven together, was brilliant. The way that it came off. If you don't mind, could you share some of, like, you don't have to go like step by step, but like some of the different traditions that you used from each of those facets and blended them together?
Yeah. So, I mean, we were married under a huppah, and so the traditional Jewish canopy. So that was kind of the setting for the ceremony. We did, the unity candle for the moms. So both of our moms lit a unity candle. From the Mexican side, we had the adas, which are the gold coins. And then we also had the lasso that was put around us, which is kind of like a dual rosary over you. So my tias did that. It was funny. I remember talking about incorporating, sign of peace and giving each other the sign of peace, and wishing, everyone the peace. And that was one that is obviously from a Catholic Mass and not Judaism. And I just remember having the conversation with Rabbi Graff, or not Rabbi Graff, Rabbi Tirza. And she was like, you have to explain this one to me. So what's this? And I was like, yeah, it's my favorite part of the Catholic ceremony, because, we offer each other the sign of peace. And then to your loved ones or friends, or even people you don't know, you hug them and you offer the sign of peace. And I said, it's a really interactive, warm piece of the Catholic Mass. And it's one of my favorites. And so she was like, oh, I love it. I'm good. That's great. Do that. So honestly, it was just kind of going through the different, and then we had readings, and the readings were probably more similar to a Catholic wedding. Rosie, actually, who my stepmom, who recently passed, she did one of the readings. So no, it was truly a real combination of all three facets of both faith and culture.
So I think it's a large reason this was evidence to Tirza of, this marriage has a shot, right? As it was this coming together of all these different pieces. And that part felt very fluid to me. Like, I think we both enjoyed that process of putting together this puzzle, that then we had to have the program had explanations for all of these things to help our guests of why these things meant something to us, which was fun.
Yeah, because like the Jewish family, when we got to the sign of peace and everyone hugs each other, there was like, what's going on? I was like, just hug everybody, just hug.
Right. But again, that's substantive versus form, right? So for me, yes, it comes out of Catholicism, a tradition, but it's not really about that. It's like that's where you learned it, but it's about this warmth and community and bringing people together. Which how can that not be good, right? How can you not like that? Or at least that's the way I viewed it.
So, kind of to Lovey's point.
Well, I just gotta say this part.
No.
You left out my favorite part of the entire wedding. I mean, of course, the part where you guys got married, and you kissed each other, blah blah blah, and it was done. It's when you
we broke the light. We broke the glass too. I forgot about that. It's very traditional for Jewish ceremony. And then we had mariachis too.
That's my favorite part that plays over and over in my head for the last 20 some odd years. Is when you broke the glass and then the mariachis came around the side
Nowhere.
And instantly.
Of the building. Amazing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is to Lovey's point about the wedding, how beautiful it was and just all the different traditions. My favorite part, I won't say my favorite part, but the part that I remember the most was after the service when we went to the other side of the winery and we were sitting down at the table. We're sitting down at the table, it was a round table, Lovey and I and Joel's, your sister, and I can't remember who else was sitting with us, but you were at a different table and you're just talking to whomever you were talking to. And Terry had come down and remember that there was like a waterfall or pond or whatever it was. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And you were standing at the other end of the fountain and you just looked like, oh my God, it was just so beautiful. Joel's sister and I were crying, like literally just crying because I was like, I feel like I just watched a movie. She was like, oh my God, me too. It was so crazy, but it was so beautiful. It brought me to tears. And it's funny because Terry, you were standing there waiting. Joel didn't know you came down. And his sister I think she snapped her fingers like, go get her. You were like, oh, okay, let me go get her. That was the only thing that stopped us from crying. But we were back there just crying like we just came out of this movie. It was so beautiful. So yeah, my favorite.
Yeah. No, I always tease if I could afford it, I'd have a wedding every year. They're a blast.
I know that's right.
The thing about all of this, what I'm hearing is an undertone of, for lack of a better phrase, just humanity, just love, just getting along, just knowing that we're more alike than we are different, regardless of doctrine or religious overtones or what have you, that you didn't really lean so much into that as much as you love each other. Mm-hmm. You've been through some stuff and you wanted to be together. And the C in crazy stands for being compassionate. And there was a lot of compassion in the choosing and the setting up of the service itself, taking everybody, not just yourselves, but also your families and your traditions into consideration. And I commend you both for that. That's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I want to know, walk us through what major holidays look like in your home. Some that are, more Christian based or whatever. Anyway, but just give us a little bit about
that. Well, Braden would tell everyone we celebrate it all. And then I think it was in, I don't know, first or second grade, he came and he was like, do we celebrate Kwanzaa? And I was like, nope, got covered. I was like, we got a lot of them covered in the family, but that's not one we have. He said, oh, okay. All right. So,
did he ask you or Theo Mark?
I know. For sure. But that was the cutest thing because he would always tell everyone we celebrate everything. And he finally clearly had learned about Kwanzaa, and it was something he was like, I don't think we do that. So, no, we do. I mean, with Braden growing up, we exposed him to both faiths for sure. So definitely do Easter and Passover. We definitely, and we always laugh because often our Passover table probably has more non-Jews than Jews, but that's how our table works. So we introduce people to a traditional Passover meal, and Joel's mom gave me a Jewish cookbook really early in our relationship, and so I make the Clintons, I guess, were the first to celebrate Passover in the White House. So that's the meal I cook for Passover. That's my
Okay.
menu. So we do that, and then we do Hanukkah and Christmas, and I mean that's probably kind of how the rhythm goes from that standpoint. Is there other?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Teresa's definitely the driving force, but holistically in both religions. In other words, like the energy behind all of these comes equally in both. So I had to get used to Christian traditions, and but equally she embraced Passover or Hanukkah, and but I'd say again, it's more of our
And
family.
I
It's
mean,
like,
Joel is picky about Christmas trees now. He's got a big opinion.
but
So
they're more about our family traditions than they are about the religions. I
yeah,
mean, there's all kinds of random Jewish holidays that are important. I mean, they're
yeah.
we don't. It's just never been part of our existence, and I'm sure there is on the Catholic side as well, where there are other.
And we
But
go to, I mean, like growing up, we would go to Mass in Sacramento. So Braden got used to going to Mass with Nana. And we would, at the time, she was going to St. Rose's. So definitely through interaction on my side of the family, he got exposed to the Catholic Mass and church. And then he, through Joel's family, got exposed into his godparents, got exposed to like bar mitzvahs and that kind of stuff. And so he going to synagogue, but to say that like Joel and I go, go to mass or go to synagogue frequently is probably not correct. We do since maybe like 2 years before Braden did his bar mitzvah, we do go to synagogue for the high holidays, and we still continue to do that now. I just don't really have a parish in San Francisco that I ever really connected to. Uh, Actually, most recently, Braden's graduation ceremony, he went to a Catholic high school, and the priest who did his two graduation ceremonies was amazing, and it was really heartwarming to me because it was the first priest in a long time for me that I was like, oh, I would go to his mass, I would go listen to him for sure.
he got me to walk up.
Oh yeah, you
I
got
mean,
you
I
got
can't
Joel to
take
walk
communion,
up
obviously, but
for communion and take a blessing.
back to my
Yeah.
uncomfortableness with religion, I had never walked up just to be blessed.
Mm-hmm.
And when Braden was the baccalaureate mass,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about it. It was just he was very clear about it that anyone could come up, regardless of faith, to be blessed, and it was just instinctual. So I mean, that's probably as much kudos to Teresa of our existence together and my sort of softening of some of those internal struggles around religion that have blossomed into just spirituality and belief and seeing the substance through the form and being comfortable with it. And
And
anyway,
I think one thing stuck with me with actually Rabbi Graff, who is the rabbi who did Braden's bar mitzvah and who is the rabbi of the congregation that we do belong to now. Um, she was very cute. She was like, if what we're teaching you, if what we're discussing like doesn't help your daily life and doesn't help you at all, then what are we doing? Like, please don't like if I can't make this relevant and mean something, then like go do something else. Like, and so we've tried to make it fun in our house. So like Passover, sometimes from what I've been told from others, that it can be like, a 3-hour torture or something. We've always made it pretty fun. And so our Passover books have always been
very
pretty
animated.
fun and animated, and we try to make it fun. So, and I love to decorate the house for all the holidays. So, like if you saw our house right now, the Winter Wonderland is definitely always mixed between Christmas and Hanukkah. It's always mixed. I don't, and Passover and Easter, just depending how they overlap, would come out at different times. But we've tried to make it fun and enjoy it and make it our traditions because, not to do it just to do it.
And I think, I mean, ultimately, for me personally, it's easy as adults to talk about religion and make your own choices. When kids come into play, I think that becomes, at least for me, that was the point where, what do I tell my child when Braden asks questions about what I believe or this tradition? Like, I have to have an answer.
So Teresa.
Or you know, or tell him why I'm still struggling, right? I mean, it doesn't, you know, I don't have to have an answer, but I have to have a response, I guess. And so again, to Teresa's point, like Teresa just said to Braden is like, you're going to have faith, you're going to have belief. And that could manifest itself in getting confirmed and going down maybe the more traditional Catholic route, or you're going to be bar mitzvahed and it can go down more of a traditional Jewish path. And Braden chose, we didn't choose, and he decided to be bar mitzvahed, which again was fortunate for me because again, it was a tradition I knew versus one I didn't. But I think I don't know, he's as comfortable in either tradition in some ways. Some mom just passed, and we were just through a lot of services last week, and I think he's equally comfortable in both places, which to me is amazing.
I mean, I guess my core belief is just I truly have a faith in definitely a higher being, whether you want to call him God, he, she, you know, maybe she. uh, I think that's what's so important, to have that inner intuition and that belief of the higher being, and that I do believe we're all connected. To me, it gets a little gray when humans get involved and you start having uh, the religions, and if you don't do this on the list, or you don't do this in the right order, and whether Catholicism or Judaism, I think it gets a little gray and we lose a little bit of the purity of the faith. So I personally don't get very hung up in the rule following. Um, what's more important to me is to be a good person and try to be loving and respectful. But I do believe that a framework is important, because I do believe, as you talked about, Ernie, when you were stabbed in the heart, when Joel had his severe bleeding ulcer, or you have death in your family, or what have you, I do believe, though, you need some kind of framework to hold on to give you that faith to get you through those really hard times. So I wasn't real particular whether it was Catholicism or Judaism, but I wanted to make sure that Braden had a framework to have, frankly, when we're not here, and that he has a basis to go to, because we all know you don't get to go through this life without those trials and tribulations. And so what was most important to me is that he has a basis for that.
Well, I have to say, kudos, job well done. Right. I've had not a ton of interaction when it revolves around religion, whatever, but I've listened to Braden, certain discussions, and I would not want to be on the other end to debate any religion with that, because the kid is well versed. He's extremely well versed, and he's got a very strong intellect when it comes to not just reason in life, but because of the exposure that you provided for him, he thinks through it. He's not going to accept something just because it's tradition. He will question people.
Yes. Oh, for sure. He's very comfortable with that.
He is square in that period of life. So
yeah,
it's like looking in a mirror a little bit, but
yeah, if anything, we can just have some, empathy. And then I know it as a family, I think we were significantly impacted when we went to Israel and Jordan to see both the Catholic and Judaism, holy sites, and to see that firsthand was huge. And we definitely covered both religions when we saw Israel from both perspectives. And then, within months, October 7th happened. And so it's definitely, as a family, had a big impact on us for sure.
I'm going to pivot away from October 7th, and the challenges that have arisen as a result. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it didn't just happen October 7th. There's a lot. There's a history.
Oh, for sure.
But food is a big deal. Food isn't just a meal in your home. It's, it seems like food is an event. And within Judaism, I know that there's, kosher is one of the things that, a lot of people talk about within Judaism, and then not so much over within Catholicism, but has faith or experiences from the past, or even just, have you dealt with kosher or dealt with the faith? Has it touched upon your food?
I mean, not from the standpoint of adherence to the kosher laws. We did have his cantor over for like a brunch before they started working together to prepare Braden for the bar mitzvah, and he did follow kosher laws. So then, I did have to like make sure that I had my stuff together so I wasn't mixing anything inappropriately. So that's about as much kosher has been in our home. Mostly because honestly, Joel's family was not his grandmother grew up kosher in a kosher household, like Nanny, right? Is our understanding
As an early girl, not as a married woman.
No, I meant as a young girl. She grew up in a kosher, but I think since then, I mean, in his family, they didn't keep kosher from that standpoint. And then his family is pretty comfortable with eating bacon. So we've been okay with that. So no, we never really tried to keep from a kosher. Where I will say that food plays an important role is that in Judaism, obviously, there's kind of very specific food you make at different holidays. I mean, I guess for Christmas on the Mexican side, we make tamales, so we have a very set menu for Christmas Eve. But that's probably, and Thanksgiving. I mean, I guess, we do it in different ways. So I think what I did have to learn on the Jewish side was definitely the food and how to cook more traditional food. And then, then just giving it your own spice.
But
And
that I would characterize that as ethnicity, equivalent to being Latino or Mexican, where it's not Judaism equivalent to Catholicism. And to me, those things have always been very different, because one I embrace and adore, and
that's
the other
the
one
piece he really likes.
Because it's a connection, it's a commonality, it's a depth, it's a history, it's all these different pieces, but it's not this rigid structure you have to live within. And so kosher makes no sense to me. I mean, for the best I know it, and Cantor that helped teach Braden and guide him before his bar mitzvah was amazing, because he was so much a teacher, and he followed the kosher diet, but didn't look down upon other people who didn't. He would give you history on it. He would talk through it, but it was set millions of years, thousands of years ago, when there was a lot of practical reasons for health and why these things existed, where today those things are not not as relevant from a health perspective. Now, tradition, sure. So we definitely don't follow that in our household.
But you've enjoyed having like traditional Jewish dishes.
Yeah, but that's like eating brisket and latkes. It's like tamales. They're the equivalent of ethnicity.
Yeah,
versus this rigidity around bacon. And pigs were dirty. They were unsafe. There were issues thousands of years ago about people. So there were practical reasons, and I'm sure there are other reasons that continue to drive it. But anyway.
So the other thing I was curious about, unless you have any other questions, anything that stood out?
No, I was just going to say, when you talk about food, especially in your household, I feel like the most important thing in the house is the wine.
And that's not religious either. Or maybe I should use that argument. But,
you can have it blessed, and then it can be.
I mean,
but we'll do Shabbat occasionally.
For sure.
I mean, we do definitely do Shabbat, and then we'll do the blessing of the wine and the blessing of the motzi and that kind of stuff. So we do that sporadically through the year. We are not, we do definitely do not do it weekly. But we definitely do Shabbat occasionally, and
Now,
it's a fun tradition.
correct me if I'm wrong. Shabbat is keeping the Sabbath, right? Or
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
so what does that look like? Because it seems like everyone has their different idea of Sabbath.
I mean, mostly on Friday night at sundown, we'll light the Shabbat candles, and we'll get a challah bread from our local bakery that we love, the braided challah bread, and we'll say the traditional prayers that you say to the Shabbat candles, and then you let the Shabbat candles burn all the way down. And motzi, you bless the challah, the motzi, and you do the blessing of the bread, and then we often continue and we'll do the blessing of the wine as well. And for us, that's about the recognition of Shabbat, and we'll have maybe our dinner that evening. But to say that we don't do, we don't do the whole of not doing anything on Saturday or anything. I mean, we still our life still moves on the next day. Where obviously a more traditional Orthodox Jewish family would honor the whole Sabbath for sure.
They wouldn't drive. They wouldn't use equipment. They wouldn't use operating equipment. I mean, if you're super traditional, but I think the Sabbath is much, again, like for me, it's as important for Braden because they're traditions. And then I just think
family time.
Exactly, it's together. And when Braden thinks about the traditions of his family, it isn't that the religion part isn't important. But I think it does. It supports what you talked about in terms of faith and Braden having that. So
no, and even like something simple as Hanukkah, like for Hanukkah, it doesn't always fall at a convenient time, right? It could still be during the school and work week and what have you, and so usually our commitment was just that we would get together, and if he was going out with friends that night or what have you, that they all come over and we light Hanukkah candles together, and then he can, do what he wants. But we've always invited whoever else wants to join in, and we have. I always love decorating, so there's lots of menorahs in the house. So if we have lots of people over, we get all the menorahs out, and everyone's lighting a menorah, and we celebrate, Hanukkah together, and then the kids can go out and do their life or go study for a final or whatever they need to do. But sometimes religion isn't as convenient, I guess. So we've tried to still make it a part of life so that it's not overly burdensome, but yet has some love and tradition to it.
I love it. I mean, I've grown up the strict Catholic, relatively strict Catholic, and I did steal the wine before it was blessed. Let's get that straight. No, but it's one of those. It just seems like you got a very beautiful approach to not just any one, but it's about being a well-rounded individual that has respect and a connection with your higher power. And so I think that's amazing. Any pushback at all or input from family that ever said, oh, you should do it this way, or oh, I can't believe you're doing that, or what about this? How come you're not doing this?
No.
Joel's smiling.
I was about to say Joel's smiling.
No, I'm smiling because I think we're both pretty. There's stronger person. I mean, there's a stronger personality on either side of the, which probably gives the teeter totter some balance. But I'm not sure we might have. I don't know. I'm not sure we would have listened if people had.
No, I think honestly, I think it's been the reverse in that most everyone has embraced it and is very and very welcoming and open to it. I mean, for my dad was happy just that no matter what, that there was going to be a faith and a following of it, of something. So I think he would have been more upset had we done nothing. I don't, not that that was an option. But my dad flew with me to our engagement party at Joel's parents' house that they had for us, and he was like, well, I want to go. So he flew with me to Colorado, and the day we landed, it was during Lent, and I really hadn't paid. It didn't click. So his mom made a traditional Jewish stew called borscht, which has beef and cabbage and that kind of stuff. And so she was offering us borscht, and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, that would be great." And he's like, my dad was like, "Without the meat." And I was like, "Oh yes, without the meat." So we had the borscht with just the cabbage that night, and I was like, "Oh yes, it is Lent. Yes, so no, I won't eat meat. No, no."
That's
So
funny.
no, I'm honestly, Rosie, who we just mentioned, she's passed recently. She loved it. Like, when she went up on the hora at our wedding, she was like, "Oh, we gotta adopt this. How do I become Jewish? Sign me up." And then honestly, something, more when there's been some of the anti-Semitic stuff or the October 7th or just other things happening in the world, she was the first to reach out to us and be like, "How do I support your family? Like, what's the stance? Just educate me and tell me where to go and I'll do it." So, very, very embracing of our Jewish side of our family, for sure. But, and honestly, Joel's side from the Jewish side has been very, very welcoming in honoring our traditions, for sure. I mean, they've come and spent Christmas and Christmas Eve with us, and I mean, I had a Christmas tree and let all of the kids decorate the Christmas tree because, of course, my Jewish niece and nephew don't get to do that. So I was like, "You want to decorate a Christmas tree?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that would be great." So when they were here, they got to decorate a Christmas tree,
And that
you
wasn't
know,
that wasn't how I was raised. So there's a large evolution of over 40 or 50 years from my mom, who I think as we said, my dad grew up Christian, but converted to Judaism at the time they got married. But my dad's family celebrated Christmas. They were Christian. So we weren't in Oregon a lot at Christmas time, but when we were, you could tell my mom almost like there was this zero sum game between Judaism and Catholicism, where if we celebrated Christmas, it took away from our Judaism. This sort of absurd. As a kid, like you're like, my cousins are opening gifts under a Christmas tree. Like, I just want to be a part of this. And so my mom was very rigid about making sure these were separated and not together. And so that changed dramatically by the time we were together. And it wasn't like that at all. And it says my parents have evolved as well, but our existence has been exactly the opposite.
yeah, everyone's actually very supportive in participating in the melting pot, and then we try as much as we can to invite others to our traditions, and so and everyone's real receptive.
I love that. And I'm just sitting here going, really? Your mom? I mean, like, what an evolution. Because I only know her as now. I could never envision her
Yeah,
having that rigidity.
Yeah, it's a traditional Jewish response, I think, unfortunately, where as a minority, you the defenses come up, right? And I guess um, which it doesn't obviously have to be that way. There's plenty of examples, but I think we see it in other parts of the world, obviously, with everything
and I
going
think
on.
with the spiritual work that both his parents do now has opened their eyes up to probably more spiritual acceptance, and again, probably a little bit more in line to a bit of my perspective of faith, from a broad perspective, and less on the rigidity of the individual rules, because they are way less that now. Even since the time that I've known them over our years, so they're very, I think, just receptive to a more global spirituality, and talking about other faiths and religions, and how I think each faith has, I guess, something to contribute, to the spiritual well-being from a more global perspective.
This is awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and actually sharing all this and your perspectives.
Real quick. So, what is it? 23? You're going on 23, or you just hit 23?
the latter. We just hit 23. So
Plus those 9.
Do the math. Do the math.
So I just want to say, we have Joel and Teresa to thank for Kiki's existence. Our youngest daughter, Kiana. Yeah, that happened at their wedding. So the time of the
She
wedding.
was
So yeah.
grooving on the dance floor.
And it didn't stop there.
After we left the reception, there was like a handful of people. We went to a bar and we played pool that night.
Oh yeah.
So I think it was maybe he slipped something in my drink. I don't know. So,
Oh yeah, she got Cosby'd.
That is terrible. Do not say that.
And that will not be edited out.
Oh
I was just gonna say that I truly appreciate your willingness and your vulnerability in sharing. There's not a lot of people that would do that. There'd be a little bit of fear, hesitation. And I know we've talked about this probably for the greater part of the last 3 years of eventually putting something like this together. But what I'd love for you to do, if at all possible, if you could speak to that young couple that are possibly there's somebody that they like or they're interested in or whatever. There's that energy. They're drawn to each other, and yet there might be that barrier of religion or the potential for that. What advice would you give to a younger couple that was contemplating weighing that out? Not even talking marriage, just in pursuing a relationship.
I would say just to first understand, each other. I think a lot of times we jump to conclusions of what things are or are not, without understanding where the religion falls or what. I just think there's so many misconceptions about religion and faith, just in general, and in many cases we're more alike than not. And just to don't rush, to a conclusion. Get to know the person, including where your faith or religion stands, and it may it may meld together way better than you think. Be open.
Yeah,
Even if it takes 9 years.
Honestly, for all the marriage counseling that you do and that you've participated, honestly, we got a lot of that dynamic done during those 9 years. So honestly, the marriage part of our life has had way less drama from that standpoint, because really that tumultuous time of like finding out your roles and how things worked and what we were going to do and what we want about life really happened for Joel and I in that 9 years. And so it was a tumultuous time for us of breakups and getting back together and finding things out. So for us, then really the marriage part was much smoother. So I don't know, it's probably just a little bit potato of, I'm not sure any marriage couple gets to have a relationship without some of that, right? And it just may happen before the marriage or after the marriage. It's a bit of timing. But for us, we did a lot of that before the marriage. I mean, we did a lot of that work.
Yeah, I mean, I think bigger than religion is, I think, for a successful relationship, there has to be two individuals. And I think in too many relationships, there's some level of codependency and some where you got to be comfortable in who you are and in your own skin. Because if you're not individually comfortable with who you are, how do you spend your life together? And being transparent about those things. And religion's just one of those, right? And it's a big one. But figuring out where you stand, looking in the mirror on religion, and if I had to go back, like, in some ways, there were things, Teresa's comfortability in faith, not religion, but faith and belief and this intangible. I'm a black and white, like, I didn't even see that as a big asset as it proved to be in terms of helping me get comfortable with that unknown and that belief and that faith, whether it's in religion or, to be honest, broader than that. So I think it's just being comfortable with who you are and making sure that there are two individuals in this relationship. And hopefully, I think that will bode much higher for success.
I love it. I love it.
I love it too.
Well, look, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight and your willingness to share, not just with us. I've known Terry the greater part of my life. Teresa. I've known Teresa the greater part of my life.
Terry and Teresa, you know me as Terry, so I'm all good with that. Terry is good, but
Terry doesn't feel comfortable for me, and hopefully Teresa doesn't for you. So it's like she's, it's all good.
No, and I mean, Ernest is my absolute brother, and I could not love Rana more.
And Joel, you've been my brother for the last 23 plus years.
Exactly.
So I love you both. I appreciate you. And again, thank you. And it's not just for us. It's also for those individuals that are watching right now. Listen, if you're watching this and you feel like, you know what, I needed this. All right. You know someone that you feel like, oh, so-and-so should listen to this particular episode. Please share this episode and the Married Into Crazy podcast with them.
So I didn't get to say anything before you start closing us out. Anyway, I find it funny that, not really funny, but like Joel, how you don't call Terry, you call her Teresa, right? And I won't call Lovey Ernie because everyone calls him Ernie. I call him Ernest. So there have been a couple of times where I would say Ernest and they're like, oh, we don't have an Ernest, but we have an Ernie. And I'm like, you idiots, that's my husband. That's the same person, But I get a kick out of that because how you said Teresa. You say Teresa, not Terry. I say Ernest, not Ernie. So yeah. And I met, the first time I met Terry was right after Lovey was in the hospital. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We
met at UC Davis.
Yep, that was our first meeting, and we hung out for 3 days straight, I think it was. And Lovey was like, yeah, I got the go ahead. And I was like, it's too late. I got the ring anyway. So, But I love you guys also. I love your relationship, just the energy that you bring, just how open you are for even coming to your home. You make everyone feel welcome. So.
Absolutely. So for those of you listening, again, now, she's giving me permission now to close out.
I swear.
So bottom line is share this, share it widely, and, be that couple that you and your spouse, you and your partner need first and foremost. Mm. And don't worry about that. Build your walls around you. But then more importantly, there's somebody that's watching you, and be that couple that they need to look to, be that North Star. Don't do it for them. Do it inherently, but know that somebody's watching you. So love each other and love each other well. Until the next time,
be blessed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Married Into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.